School Board District 7 debate tonight. We're so excited to have so many of you here tonight. My name's Elizabeth Garby. I'm Vice President of Public Policy for United Way of Salt Lake. This debate series is hosted by the Utah Education Debate Coalition, which includes the Deseret News, Hinckley Institute, Utah PTA, Utah Association of Public Charter Schools, and United Way of Salt Lake. We want to thank Beehive Academy for hosting us tonight. For those of you who are here and for those of you who are online, that's where we are currently sitting. And we want to thank each of you for joining us to come hear from the candidates so that you can make informed decisions this November. Tonight's debate is a hybrid event, so we do have people in person as well as online. Those of you who are here in person, we ask that you refrain from applause. And as you walked in, I know some of you have already passed me questions, so we're very excited about that. We will do it halfway through. We will ask for questions from the audience. And so for those of you who are online, you can put those into the chat there on YouTube, and they will also get to me. So now I want to welcome our candidates, Molly Hart and John Arthur. We're so excited, proud to have both of you here tonight. It's really great to have people come out and run for elected office. So we have a series of questions for the candidates. They will have 90 seconds to respond to those questions with a 30-second rebuttal. If you would like to have a rebuttal, you can each have one rebuttal. And then the second half, we will look to all of you. So don't forget to put your questions in. We're going to start and end the debate with opening and closing statements. So they each will have a minute and a half to do that. And Molly won the coin toss, so she's going to go first in welcoming. Molly.
Good evening. My name is Molly Hart, and I am the incumbent, was first elected in 2020. On the State Board of Education, I serve as a vice chair and the chair of the audit committee. I serve on law and licensing, formerly of finance. I've worked in education as a, well, I've had almost every job, starting as a parapro and a substitute, a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and now I run a group of charter schools in the south end of the valley. I was a first-generation college student who couldn't actually study to be a teacher right off the bat because I had to work my way through college, and you couldn't have a job and be in the Department of Teacher Education at Michigan State. So I became a social worker, and then right after I graduated, I promptly signed up to get my teaching certificate. And I love education. I've worked in a vast array of circumstances. I've worked in the poorest areas, in the deep south in Georgia, the wealthiest suburbs, in turnaround schools, and in schools that were #1 in Georgia and Utah. I've worked at elementary, middle, high school. I've worked in college. I understand how education works, and I draw on that knowledge every day, serving on the state board. And I love the work we do. Thank you.
John.
Should I use this?
Yeah.
Check. You were powerful, Molly. Check. 1, 2, 3. You know, if you style, but style ain't free. Okay. Should I start?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Arthur. I am a National Board Certified Teacher, the 2021 Utah Teacher of the Year, and the National Teacher of the Year finalists. It is incredible to be here in the community where I grew up. I went to Butler Middle School, Brighton High School. I used to bomb down this hill just outside on 94th on my bicycle. And now I am running to represent this community that we all love on the state school board in front of my little girls. And when I was named Teacher of the Year in 2021, a former student asked me, what's it like being named the teacher of the worst year ever? I told him it's pretty great. I got into teaching because I wanted to be of service. I wanted to make my community strong. And now I'm seeking this opportunity to help all the other educators librarians, principals, school board members make their communities stronger as well. I've also followed our state school board closely over the last several years, and I don't know if you've all been watching, but I know Molly would probably agree, it's been a little bit hard to watch. The chaos and dysfunction at the top of our education system has made it harder for those of us in the classroom to be effective and create safe learning environments for all of our children. And that's why I'm running for this office, because it doesn't have to be this way. We can have a school board that we're proud of and strong vocal champions serving as state school board members. And I look forward to earning your vote tonight.
Thanks to both of you. So I'm going to start with the first question, and that will go to John. John, what will be your guiding principles for decision-making if elected to the state board?
Yeah. My mother's a Korean immigrant to this country, and there's a saying in Korea that loosely translates to all kids are our kids. My guiding principle when I serve on the state school board is making sure that we are passing policies and coming up with administrative rules that have heart, that we're taking bills from the legislature and turning them into the kinds of things that can uplift all of our children. When I was in grad school getting my Master of Arts in Teaching, I worked with a couple of students who had disabilities, who were on IEPs, and I realized I wasn't equipped to meet their needs. And so I had one student loan running, so I said, rack it up. And I added a second student loan, and I got a second master's degree in special education, because I could not stand the idea that there were kids in my classroom that were not being met and worked with at the level that they needed. I wanted to be able to tailor my instruction to whatever the student in front of me needed it to be. And that's what I want to see from our state school board. Less governance and more tailoring, more of an openness to listening to parents, to families, to students. When they tell us what they need, every kid will let you know exactly what it is that they need. And if we just open our minds, our hearts, and our expertise to the things that they are telling us, then we will be able to create schools that actually deliver on the promise of public education.
Thank you. Molly, what will your guiding principles be?
So when I am faced with a decision about a policy or something that's proposed, there's a series of steps I go through in my mind. One, and most of all, because I got into this because I saw that teachers that I was working with, they were leaving education, not because they didn't enjoy teaching, they loved it, but because of everything else. And the mandates and the requirements and the unrealistic expectations. And so when I make a decision about a policy, the first thing I do is, does it work? Will it do what the policy is intending to do? And a lot of times when you're working on a board with 14 people that may or may not have a lot of experience with education, a lot of those solutions sound good, but they don't work. So first of all, does it work? Second, is it fair? Does every student have an opportunity under said policy? Is it something that that all children will benefit? And third, teachers will do things if they're cheap, easy, and effective. Is this something our teachers can do? And if so, then that's usually an affirmative vote. Thank you.
Great. This next question will go back to you, Molly, and it's a little long, so I will repeat it for you, John, if you need me to. But the State Board of Education recently updated its vision. And the current vision states academic and organizational excellence in Utah education. Utah graduates are prepared to participate in civic responsibilities, uphold and strengthen our constitutional republic, provide for themselves and their families, engage in post-secondary opportunities, pursue personal goals, and embody strong moral and social values. Do you agree with this vision? Is there something missing from this vision?
Okay, this vision took a long time and many meetings. And Yes, I do. I think there's something in that vision for everyone. I also think that vision reflects what the state board does. We can't forget the role of the state board. It is by constitution the general control and supervision of the public school system. We set standards, but not curriculum. We distribute funding fairly and accurately to our districts and our schools and a bunch of other things. We run an organization. If we don't run that organization well, every school suffers. So while it's important to have the pieces about what we want our students to come away with, what we want our portrait of a graduate to look like, it's also important that people understand that we're running a business. We are running the Department of Education. And with that comes a lot of responsibility. Funding formulas, funding distribution, making sure standards are clear, making sure all students have opportunities for success. That all is encompassed in that vision.
Thank you. John, would you like me to repeat the question?
Oh, we'd be here all night. It's all good. No, and honestly, there's not anything necessarily in the vision that I disagree with. The problem with it is that it reflects the current reality on our state school board. You have 15 members who are elected through partisan elections, who are often feeling like they have to say everything they possibly can to their constituents through YouTube. And so they all will make a statement about every agenda item. I've had to watch every state school board meeting since 2018 because I've served as an advisor to the board. I've represented the Asian community on an advisory committee. I helped write our new K-6 social studies standards. And what should take this much time takes forever. A vision statement is supposed to be short. That was like a waking dream when you describe that vision. And when I get onto the board, I look forward to bringing the teacher's ethos. Most simple is mo better, right? When you're trying to move an organization or a classroom, you need clarity, you need consistency, and you need to keep it simple, because what we're really doing is just trying to raise academic achievement for kids. We don't need to fit in every other statement about the republic in which we are fortunate to live or the work that we are blessed to do. We need to level up our state school board by making things clearer and frankly reflect more of what is excellent in all of our classrooms and schools.
Thank you. This could be a multi question, but we're putting it into one. And John, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
This year, public education may experience some significant funding changes due to 2 constitutional amendments that will be on the ballot in November. We have Amendment A, which would end the 80-year old income tax earmark for education, which also, you know, is currently in the courts. And so we're not sure if that's going to count or not. We also have Amendment B, which would increase the annual school land trust distribution from state school fund. Do you believe public education is adequately funded? And do you support these amendments?
Education is not adequately funded. I don't know anybody who would say that it is. And as much as I love everybody here in the room, if you don't mind, I'm going to talk to YouTube real fast. Hey, YouTube. All right, so here's the deal. Constitutional Amendment A has to fail, and Constitutional Amendment B has to pass. The reason is both of those are addressing something that was put into place a long time ago. Constitutional Amendment A was put into place about 8 years ago to earmark as a legacy investment our income tax revenue to help fund our kids' education system. Amendment B is trying to raise the cap on monies that were put into place back before the US Constitution was ratified and before George Washington was our president. Our leaders have always known that the best way to take care of public education is to prioritize it. And they did it back in the day with land set aside and saying that land money must be used to help create an educated citizenry, to help uplift and move our population forward. And then also our leaders in Utah knew well enough that if we take the money we make and reinvest it in our children's education, then our kids will become the strongest drivers of our economy and workforce that we could ever have. The idea that we are now trying to take this old wisdom and put a new spin on it has to fail. No to Constitutional Amendment A, yes, be good to Constitutional Amendment B, and no, we do not adequately fund our schools.
Molly, to you, do you believe public education is adequately funded and do you support these amendments?
No, education is not adequately funded, I don't think, in any of the 50 states. Amendment B, that's easy, yes. Our trust lands have been managed very, very well, and it's appropriate that money would go return to schools. Amendment A is a whole nother story. Now, I don't think it's going to make it through the legal challenge, but if it does, I guess it'll go before the voters. Personally, no, it's not. It's lacking the assurances that we need to have in order to ensure that not just school is funded adequately. The problem is that what we have isn't that great either. And just because we have Amendment A in front of us doesn't mean that the current system with the earmark is a lot of one-time money. It has some loopholes. We passed some other uses for that money in the past couple of years. We have a school finance problem, and we need to all work together and figure out what a better solution is moving forward, because our students are depending on that.
Excellent. I have some more questions for you both. Molly, I'm going to start with you on this one. Going back to funding, in some ways, do you support the Utah Fits All Scholarship Program? And do you believe there is enough accountability in the plan? Please explain.
So let me just start off by saying I support choice. I have spent 20 plus years in schools trying to make schools all things to all students. And that's just not possible. Different students need different environments. I was principal at Albion Middle School, and that's right near here, Beehive, a charter school focused on STEM. And there are students that would leave my school and have an awesome experience here at Beehive. And likewise, students need different things. I am concerned about, I don't think we need to have an award that's as gracious, as large as it is. I think we could cut that in half and serve double the number of students. I think that I'm much more supportive of the homeschool side than the private school side. And I don't think that there's enough accountability for two reasons. One is we won't know what works and what doesn't unless we collect data on this. And two, our tax dollars just basically disappeared. And I just, as someone that cares about where every dollar goes, because we're so, careful about that, we're so short on those funds, we need to know where it goes, and we need to know what works and what doesn't. So I'd like to see a little bit more accountability in that system.
Thank you. John, do you support the Utah Fits All Scholarship Program, and do you believe there's enough accountability in the plan?
Thank you so much for this question, because I tell you, you're hitting the most important ones right at the start. Our principles, I mentioned that mine is all kids are our kids. And when I talk about that, what I'm referring to is how public education is set up to take care of all kids. You cannot take your kid into a public school and have that school say no. We don't want your kid, we can't serve your kid. That's the beauty of public education. That's for all kids. And this question is critical because right now, there is an effort to divert critical resources out of our inadequately funded schools. We agree that there's not enough education funding, and yet we are somehow finding ourselves okay with resources leaving to go to private schools, religious schools, and home schools. I am adamantly against this program. And Molly, I just gotta push back a little bit because it sounded to me like you said you're okay with vouchers, just like half as much. And frankly, half as much makes sense because each voucher is double the amount of the WPU that our students receive anyways. Our kids receive a little over $4,000 for their education per student. Each voucher is $8,000 per student. They're getting double what our children are getting in our neighborhood public schools. We all in the education community have to come out adamantly, firmly against this thing because what's 82.5 million today will be 160 millions next year. And we at some point have to say enough is enough. We need to do away with this program.
Molly.
So let's go back to what a state board does. A state board does not pass laws. A state board takes what the legislature decides and turns it into the best policy it can. Legislature is going to legislate. There is, first of all, we could talk finance for hours, but there's a lot more that goes into funding students than just the WPU. Secondly, and most importantly, every school and district can go out into the marketplace and receive those voucher dollars. It's a marketplace anyone can join, and school districts are doing it already.
Man,
John.
not anybody can join because there's a cap on how many vouchers going out there. It's going to be reserved for a select number of students. And when the voucher bill came up, the state school board came out against that bill, along with the superintendents, the local school boards all throughout the state. As a state school board, we can strongly and emphatically say no to the things that are going to hurt public education. That's your responsibility as a state school board member. That's why you're elected. You're not over all of education. You are over K-12 public education.
Thank you. I want to remind all of you online to put your questions into the chat. And if you have questions here as well, you can come and put them up on the chair at the front by Gina. I have a few more questions though before we're going to get to those. What should districts, schools, and charter schools be doing to create climates where every student feels safe? And
I think she answered that.
I can't remember.
Yeah, she answered vouchers first.
You about it? Okay, so yeah.
So in my classroom, when you walk in, and it's not just true of my classroom, it's true of all of Meadowlark Elementary, the Title I elementary where I teach, you walk into a space that immediately acknowledges the beauty and brilliance of all the kids who come into that classroom. On my wall, you see photographs of all the students I've had. I'm in my 12th year of teaching right now. And after 12 long years, I am still madly in love with this profession. And the reason I love it so much is because the kids, while similar, are always brilliantly different. They say weird things like skibbity Ohio Riz these days, and they talk about positive and negative aura. And if any of my students ever see this on YouTube, I'm sorry I said that, I know. It just made you cringe so hard. But the thing is, when my kids walk into their classroom, they recognize it as their classroom. When our kids walk into their schools, they should recognize it as their schools. Our schools should be responsive to children, parents, families. It should reflect the communities that they serve. That's what should make every public school different and unique. Not the programming, not the amount of funding that it gets in from this program or that program. It should reflect the beautiful diversity and cultural richness of every neighborhood in Utah. And the beauty is when you commit to accepting all kids as our kids and meeting all kids' needs, they will feel safe, welcome, and respect.
Molly.
Would you like me to repeat the question? Yes. What should
Districts, schools, and charter schools be doing to create school climates where every student feels safe?
Okay, so school safety and student safety, there's many facets to this. Of course, we're now hearing about the school safety bill, which includes a lot of physical safety to fortify the actual structures, making sure that there's not doors wide open and that all the entrances are secure and making sure there's cameras and such. There's also the climate side, which is what John was referring to, where students feel safe and aren't worried for their safety. We have to work on discipline in schools. Our teachers are getting burnt out on discipline issues, and that contributes to either a feeling of safety or not. We need to continue to work on bullying. We need to continue to work on making sure that students have a voice when something happens to them, making sure that parents are communicated with and understand what resources are available and how they can help, making sure that everybody understands why schools have the rules they do. And then, of course, the physical safety, the drop-off line, the pickup line, the parents coming into the school to volunteer, making sure those folks are safe as well. There's a lot of different parts to safety that are very, very important in order to make sure those students have a safe place to learn.
Thank you. Many students come to school with needs that are outside of the education realm, such as hunger and anxiety, that can impact their ability to learn. What do you see as the school's role in addressing these issues and why? And Molly, that's to you.
Me first. So we know that if a student has needs, they can't learn if they've got other things they're thinking about. And it goes right back to the last question that we were talking about. Schools have the ability to teach students how to be part of a community. You know, I refer back to a book, an older book called All I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Learning to get along with others, learning that the space around you isn't your space, it's the community. You contribute to that classroom environment. That's what we should be focusing on teaching students along with the standards and the book knowledge that they learn. They need to learn how to be part of a community and how to learn to be in groups and learn to try hard and learn to persevere when they first don't succeed. Those are the things that I hear most often when parents come into my office and say, you know, my child's struggling. I need help with. A lot of it is those work habits, those the resiliency skills. So I think that's what we really need to focus on in schools all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Thank you. John, do you want me to repeat the question for you?
No, this question burned in my heart. And this one's part of why I became a teacher. The reason I'm sitting in front of you right now is, and at the end of my junior year, I stopped going to school entirely. I was at Brighton High School. I got straight F's my third trimester. My grandmother had passed away. My house had been broken into. And I, like many teenagers, just swung way too far. I was like, what am I doing with my life? And I just stopped going. And the only reason I graduated high school is because my teachers came and found me. They prioritized my mental, emotional health, and they had to leave the schoolhouse to do it in order to get me back. And because they brought me back, I've dedicated my professional life to doing the same, not just for my kids, but for all of the kids in Utah. And when it comes to the things that make kids successful in school, that's what we should be prioritizing in our funding. We should have universal school lunch because kids who are fed learn better. It's simple. And if we can prioritize funding for other things like school vouchers, then certainly we can prioritize funding for feeding children. It seems like a no-brainer to me, but during the pandemic, we saw how effective our schools can be when we would not only feed our children, but we would go out and leave things on their doorsteps just to let them know we love them and to take care of them. And if our state school board, our state legislature could match that level of grace and empathy that our school system, our families, our communities, our educators showed when the world fell apart, then I promise you, this world would be a whole lot better place.
Thank you. We have lots of questions coming in, so I'm gonna pivot to those. I appreciate that. So I'm gonna start with this one, and I think I start with you, John. What is the biggest issue teachers face in the classroom, and how can the school board address it?
Not enough chicken nuggets at lunch. You know what, the biggest issue that we face right now that I would love to see more from the state school board is the exhaustion and burnout that Molly was referencing. And a lot of that comes from the way that our leaders talk about us and the way that our leaders step up to defend us when people will say the worst things about teachers. As a constituent, as a educator, and I've been watching these state school board meetings, I would hear awful things said about the people who are big-hearted enough to educate and uplift our children. It starts with leadership. It starts with stepping up and saying, no, 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 you cannot say that, you cannot do that. We need strong, emphatic leaders to defend us and then provide us those desperate, precious resources that we need to be more successful for kids. But if we feel good in our work and we feel appreciated by our leaders, I promise you more of us will stay and will continue to do great work for kids.
Yes, oh, whoops. What is the biggest issue teachers face in the classroom, and how can the school board address it?
Sure. Throughout, 20+ years, that's changed a lot, in detail. But the message really stays the same. Teachers want to know what's expected of them. They want clear guidelines about, what's in bounds and what's out of bounds. They want to know that they're supported. They want to know, they want predictability in how situations are handled. They want to know that their voice will be heard. Those things have lasted from the very first, not only my own experience as a teacher, but as an administrator, that's always what teachers have wanted. And we can do more of that. We can always do more of that on the state board and in our local education agencies and our individual schools. But you know what? It starts with the principal. And if a principal doesn't have time because they are so bogged down in red tape and bureaucracy that they can hardly get out of their office, they can't get those things done for teachers, which should be their priority. And that's why I've been working on reports and requirements task force, where we're reducing that bureaucratic load so that principals and teachers have the time to do the things they love, which is being with the students.
Thank you. This will go back to you, Molly. How do you feel about banning books? What kind of books should be banned?
So this was a fun issue that we've had over the last couple of years. And by fun, I mean that in the worst way possible. There's a lot of nuance to this. A book that's fine in high school may be completely inappropriate for middle school. And our laws are based on a community standard. And it's important that the community is heard when a book challenge comes up. Book challenges are not new. Book challenges have been around for decades. And you know what? One of the concerns I have is how much money we're spending on books that don't actually get read. So if we have this much time, if we have very little time for students to be able to explore a library and check out books, we can certainly be choosy about what books we put in. And I think a lot of the nuance is lost in rhetoric on this. And I think you really need to think about the practicalities, the ages, what you're trying to teach in the curriculum. And really, it's got to be a community discussion. It can't be something that is decided at a state level.
John.
I completely agree about the idea that this has to be decided at the community level, which is why I firmly disagreed with the legislation that allowed three school districts or two school districts and five school board or five charter schools to ban a title statewide. This is something that needs to be decided at our community levels. Every community can decide for itself what books are and are not appropriate for our children. That's our responsibility as parents. I got my two little girls sitting right here. I don't want somebody anywhere else in the state or anywhere else in the country deciding for us what they can or cannot read in their school. I trust librarians to make good choices with the titles they select. But if one should slip through, I trust the committees that are formed within our communities of parents, educators, and others to read that title and decide for themselves, is this right for our children? And I bring hope, my friends. There is one body in the state of Utah that can overturn a statewide book ban. That is the Utah State Board of Education. As titles come up to the board members can decide if they want to join up in a group of three to just bring it to the state board to appeal and make the decision about whether or not that ban should stand. And I would just encourage state school board members on there now and also all the candidates running to take up that responsibility for themselves.
Thank you. John, back to you. I'm really loving this one. What is your favorite children's book?
Shoot, because I got two critics who will like judge me if I pick the wrong title. You know what? There's a book.
yours,
No. I'll tell you. I just read a couple nights ago this book, Eyes That Rise to the Skies and Speak to the Stars. I see Valentine smiling really big. As a an Asian American male elementary school educator, I'm kind of a unicorn. We're less than 1% of the teaching force. And as a father, going out and picking out children's books, it's hard for me to find books that not only build empathy in my children for other people, but build pride in our cultural heritage. And this is a book about a young boy whose friend draws a picture of him, and instead of eyes, just draws two lines and gives proper eyes to the other kids. And I love the message of the book, which is, you are beautiful, your eyes are magical because they reflect your soul. I love the idea that right now, as I sit here, my mother, who was a Korean immigrant, came over here to the United States after she married my father, who was a soldier, is smiling upon her son, who is speaking here as a candidate for the state school board. I like to think that my ancestors are smiling on me and my descendants are proud. And I love any book that I can put my daughters to bed with and leave with that kind of profound feeling in my heart.
Thank you. Molly, please tell us about your favorite.
So, the tables are turned. I taught courses in the reading endorsement, teachers that wanted to better their teaching in reading. And I used to ask them this question, and they would, now I understand why they hesitated. You've got Goodnight Moon, and you memorize that because you read it all the time, and it's good for everybody to memorize. But the one that just comes to mind is they are the Skippy John Jones books. And let me tell you why. Because in this world, we've gotten so serious with our children. And when you read Skippy John Jones, you can read these books in these funny accents, and you can really just play it up. And the words just, I don't know, it's, I wish I had one. And they've got the greatest pictures of cats with their hair all crazy. And it just lets kids be kids. And you can, while you're reading to your child or your child's reading to you, you can just laugh and enjoy a book. And we don't do that enough anymore with our kids, I'm afraid. And Skippy John, they're pretty cool. I highly recommend you all check them out.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm going to go to a couple of the online questions. This first one will go back to you, Molly. What is each candidate's stance on charter schools?
Okay, well, I run a group of charter schools right now. And after 20+ years of working in traditional LEA, I just like trying new things and I like new challenges. And my granny always said, if you got time to complain about something, you got time to do something about it. And I saw some things that I really concerned me, kind of coming down the pipe where I've spoke about them, where teachers are constrained and they want to try some new things, but they can't. And we want to try, some innovative ideas. So I hopped on over to the charter world and I have had a blast. And I've been in other charter schools and been fortunate enough to guest teach. And every charter school has its own personality. And it opened my eyes to other ways that we can do school, that it doesn't have to be the same or so similar in order to meet the needs of students. That students can go to a school that is very specific and very the organization is flat. So you're never more than 2 people away from a director if you need help as a parent. Charter schools, I think, add a lot of value to our public school system, and they are public, by the way.
Thank you. John, what is your stance on charter schools?
I, first of all, want to just echo exactly what Molly just said. They are public schools. Charter schools have a charter board. They are accountable to various stakeholders. They also have to take many of the same assessments that we have to take in public schools, which is why I am so adamantly against vouchers and the idea that they take money away, not just from your traditional public schools, but also charter schools. If you honor charter schools, if you have a charter school in your life that is doing something special for kids like Spectrum Academy does for students with autism, or Slixie does in the Salt Lake City School District, or the charter school that we're in right now, then you should be absolutely against school vouchers. My only complaint, well, not my only complaint, but my major one when it comes to charters is that they can say no where traditional public schools cannot, and we don't want to. We want to take all kids that come to us, and too often charters fall short when it comes to our students with disabilities. They fall short when it comes to our students who are multilingual learners. They don't have to step up for children, and public schools do. So that's why no matter what type of model you ask me about, I will always come back to you and tell you that together we need to do everything we can to elevate our neighborhood public schools because they are the best hope for all kids.
Thanks, John. Molly,
Yeah.
30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, I just to be very clear, charters let in students by lottery. And it doesn't matter if they have an IEP, a 504, they are not allowed to turn students away. That is absolutely not allowed. I just want to make sure that that's extremely clear because it is a misconception out there, and I'm just happy to make sure that's clear.
Sure.
They may not turn them away at the door, but they will show them out. Charter schools will let out kids who are behavioral problems, students who are behaving in a way that does not conform to what it is that flat system says that they value and cherish. I've had many, many, many students come to my school after having been released from a charter school, and we have to find ways of helping them be successful. That is absolutely a reality. And if anybody wants to come have a conversation with me about it, I've got children who I love that I can tell you about.
This sounds like a conversation that we might want to have a little further after today's debate. I'm going to go to the next question, which starts with John. How do you plan to, if elected, retain teachers in our system?
And actually, I'm going to add to this.
Mhm.
They're both.
No, actually, let's just do that one first.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, it's a generational problem that we're going to try and answer in 30 seconds, but I will tell you
No,
that
you have a minute.
Oh, I've got a minute and a half. Easy. I'll tell you, my candidacy has made a lot of teachers excited because for years, at the beginning of the pandemic, teachers were heroes. Everybody wanted to uphold and elevate teachers as these amazing humans. And then somehow public sentiment turned on us. And right now we're facing a crisis in our country. For the first time in a long time, a majority of American parents don't want their children to become teachers. The majority of teachers will tell students not to become teachers. And the idea that one classroom teacher right now here in our district, District 7, is running for the state school board and is doing so with so much enthusiasm and positivity and love for this public education system that we operate in, is making people feel inspired. That's why we've been able to fundraise so well. That's why there's so many signs out there. And the first thing that you want to do if you're going to retain teachers is inspire them. We got into this profession because we were inspired by the possibility of uplifting and educating children. And we leave when certain realities come crashing down upon us. The first step in keeping us is reigniting that flame and that love that we brought with us into the profession. And from there, we can solve problems. But you cannot do it unless you inspire us first.
Thank you. Molly, how will you help retain teachers?
So I have spent the last 20, I need to add it up, but I think it's 26 years working at retaining teachers. And the way to do it is by giving them a voice, giving them clear guidelines, helping them be successful, getting them the resources they need, and yes, protecting them from some of the winds of public perception. There's a phenomenon that is well known that people think that schools in general, far away, are not good and are failing. But the closer you get to the neighborhood school, the more people support the school. And when people are asked about their neighborhood school, they're extremely positive. We can't play into the rhetoric of us versus them and communities. Our teachers are loved by the majority of the people that they are serving. And when we play into the rhetoric of teachers are being victimized and villainized, then we're not doing our teachers any favors. So to retain teachers, you've got to treat them with a whole bunch of respect because they are doing an enormous Herculean task that many people just can't do. And retaining teachers is something that just takes a lot of careful policy making.
Mind if I just ask I don't know if it's a rebuttal on this, just a clarification.
Let's do that after,
Okay.
because I'm going to follow up with another question that's similar. And let's do a minute instead for each of them on this one. We heard, and actually we're going to start with you, Molly. We heard about how you're going to how you want to help retain teachers, but we also have a problem where teachers are also leaving the classroom and taking other kinds of administrative jobs. So how will you provide leadership to help incentivize teacher leaders to stay in the classroom?
1 minute. Okay. Yes. So we are working on just this. I make sure that teachers have leadership opportunities. I worked on a bill last year and I'm implementing it this year at my school. It's called a master grant, and it's where teachers have different levels of leadership while they stay in the classroom. So whether it's an extended contract and then they get to make decisions about the direction of the schools, or it's a thing called teacher-powered schools, where the administrative decisions of the school are made by teachers and carried out by administrators. There are many different things that we can do that cause teachers to not leave for other jobs and stay and be and stay classroom teachers. Because really and truly, the first thing you realize once you leave the classroom is that you miss it horribly.
Thank you, Molly. John, how will you provide leadership to help incentivize teacher leaders to stay in the classroom?
Absolutely. So, and after I was named Teacher of the Year, and I thought 2021 was going to be like the toughest year, but then 2022 was a doozy. 2023 just kept on going. I realized I needed to find other opportunities to serve. That's why I became not only a Utah Teacher Fellow, but I'm now the co-director of the Utah Teacher Fellows. It's a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to developing the next generation of Utah teacher leaders. I also serve as the director of candidate recruitment for the Utah National Board Coalition, and I also serve on the board of directors for the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. This is the organization that is the premier, highest level of achievement that a teacher can earn in our profession. In medicine and law, you have to get it. In teaching, you volunteer for it. And I volunteer to serve all the other teachers who are looking to rise as professionals and stay in the classroom, because that's the best way that we can empower teachers while also keeping them doing the thing that they are most excellent at.
Thank you. This question's come up a few times. So John, I'm going to start with you. How will special interest groups like NEA and UEA affect your decision while on the board?
This is a wonderful question. I thank whoever wrote it. I am a proud member of my local, state, and national association. I'm a member of the Salt Lake Education Association, Utah Education Association, and National Education Association, because when I was a first and second year teacher, I started to watch these people across the state stepping outside of the comfort of their classrooms to advocate for the children in mind. It's thanks to the Utah Education Association, for example, that we have consistently seen greater spending in education. They are the organization that does the most advocacy work at the Capitol while I'm in my classroom. I have chosen to join these professional organizations because I want to be a champion for all children, teachers, and public schools as well. They do not make decisions for me. I made the wise choice of joining with the premier educators in my profession, but I will bring the values of uplifting public school students, and our educators with me to the state school board.
Thank you. Molly.
Yes, I taught in Georgia, and Georgia doesn't recognize teacher unions. I was never a member of the union. I was an administrator when I got here to Utah. I think it speaks to a larger question, though, and that is your independence in making decisions about policy. And I think it is very important to stay as neutral as possible, to consider the policies in front of you, and to not let those groups or those organizations one of the first questions you asked is, what are the values you use to make decisions? And I think it's important to stick to those values and to stay very independent. And I feel it's part of my responsibility to be as neutral as possible.
Thank you. I'm going to do one last question and then we'll go to our closing statements. So Molly, we're going to start with you on this last question. This came up earlier. So fortunately, Utah has not experienced the horrific mass shootings in our schools that has occurred in our neighboring states and many other states. How can we prevent this from happening in the future?
The thing that weighs on every educator anywhere is that you can't stop things from happening, horrible, tragic things, but you can work very, very hard at lessening the probability. And that includes things like the school safety initiatives, making sure there's not open entrances to your building, making sure that your security procedures are followed by everybody. And then the climate piece. If you look at those tragedies, you find often a long history of students that don't have their needs met. And we need to make sure that our school policies, our discipline policies, our counseling policies help students be the healthiest people they can be. We need to work with parents, we need to work with community members, and we need to ensure that we are all working together in the support of students. You can't stop things from happening, but you can certainly make it a much safer place, and you can make it the safest place in the community for children to be during the day.
Thank you, Molly. John, would you like me?
No, I'll tell you, this is just a really hard question for me to answer in front of my daughters. Last year we were doing an active shooter drill, and my daughters come to school with me. I drive them there in the morning. They come home and hang out in my classroom after school. And yeah, last year, my youngest was in kindergarten, my oldest was in second grade, and we were having a school shooter drill. And I was huddled on the floor with my sixth graders, trying to keep them quiet, trying to keep them sane, because those are insane situations. And I was having these mental visions play out where I was imagining, okay, how do I get my students outside, safe, running towards the church that is our safety meetup place? And then how do I get back in the building and get to my little girls? How do I do that? And the idea that any father, any teacher, anybody has to have that kind of a vision play out in their mind speaks to the tragedy of this moment. But in the most tragic moments, what we need more than anything else is leadership. As the legislature continues to write bills about education without asking educators about them, we need to step up. And we got to tell these legislators before they pass the bills, before they get to that point, this part doesn't make any sense. The idea that we're going to have armed volunteers through the school guardian program in Utah schools, that's supposed to make me feel safer about my daughters and my students. That is a failed idea, and I could have told you 8 months ago. Please, as state school board members, we need to take it upon ourselves to step up ahead of time, not follow the lead of the legislature, lead them in better educational directions.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for all your fabulous questions. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to all of them today. We're going to go to closing statements, and John, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. I just want to first thank everybody who helped put on this debate. I want to thank everybody who's watching here in person or online. I want to thank Molly, and I'll tell you all right now, it's hard for me to call her Molly because I like to call her Dr. Hart, but she doesn't like being called Dr. Hart. She's made this very clear to me. So Molly, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for doing all that you can for our community. I tell you, my wife and I have this saying at home. When our daughters talk to us about their needs or wants, we like to say to each other, we're in the making dreams come true business. All right? And those of us in education, we're in the making dreams come true business. We make dreams come true for students, for parents, for families, for communities, for the state of Utah. And now is the perfect time to come join the Making Dreams Come True business. If you want to help make dreams come true in our schools, there's a public school near you that needs help, but I'll tell you right now, I need help. I'm running for the state school board in District 7, and we have less than a month left in this election. I need everybody who wants to make dreams come true in public education to come out, come knock doors with us, come tell everybody, vote John Arthur, phone bank, write postcards, do all the things that you can to get the right people elected into these offices, because we are all ready for a fresh start in education. We can have, again, a school board that we're proud of, and school board members that we can get excited about and follow their lead. I'm John Arthur. I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to lead, and I'm here to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Molly, closing statement.
Sure. So in 2020, when I ran the first time, it was under much different circumstances. There was a pandemic, so there wasn't any campaigning other than in your dining room or basement on the phone. And someone told me that, oh, it's so much fun. It's 2 days a month, and it's just not hard, not hard. Let me tell you what, it is extremely hard. It is hard work to take 15 people from across the state of Utah and try to come to an agreement on what's best for Utah schools and Utah students. It took a couple of months, maybe even a year, to get to the point where I understood what was going on. And I understood a little bit more, enough of the puzzle that I felt like I could make some change. And we have just begun. We are reducing the burdens on teachers and principals. We are streamlining licensing so that it's easier to get teachers into the classroom. We're adding programs for students like the Catalyst Center up in Davis County, where students get work-based learning. We have so much work to do, and I want to be there for it. So thank you for those of you that have reached out, and I'm asking for your vote for 4 more years. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I particularly want to thank Molly and John, who have taken their time to run for office and to represent this community. And thank you. Happy voting in November.